Drowning water. 1. The cormorant carries the universe. It's a place small enough for a bird to carry. On its back, the countryside tilts down to the sea. Beneath its feathers, a well runs deeply down into its body. You haul water up in a tin bucket. The water isn't red like cormorant's blood, but clear like the skill of drinking from your palms folded, holding an invisible cup. You drink the cup and unfold your hands reaching for the water again. 2. You take the water indoors. It enters a room trembling. It enters a house afraid even though it's been there before. Even though it's been in the belly of a whale, in a teapot, in the eyes of Seneca, in a shot glass, in a glacier, even though it's passed through sewers and aquariums, been under Phoenician ships and in the stems of roses, in the wings of locusts rising from a decision in the dark. It enters the house shivering as if it were cold, even though it has been mixed with blood, with soup, with earth, with food dyes that have made it bluer than blue ever wanted to be, even though Lao Tzu slept with it beneath his tongue, calling it a flame, even though it has rested in the warmth of countless breasts, awaiting the child foretold by emptiness, even though each time the infant is only water and mourning, the ocean come back from death, laying down its head. 3. At every moment water is finished with itself, complete with memories, with motion, with resting places, but because of you it begins again to move the hours into position. It picks you up once again from sleep. All day it will protect you from thirst, which is the voice of the enemy in your throat longing to speak, to curse the wisdom of the elements, the raindrops' preeminence over humanity, the rapture in the plumbing, ecstasy in the kettle, the exultation in the cloud. You who are so graceless, drowning water with your gestures, understand its patience, its tender stillness in a bowl. Its true life is a silence that is always present, the far away in an animal's mouth, the dowry of a bride unborn. You who are so unconscious, so wet with thought, know when you leave it will wait for you, wait years for you to return. Then it will be a name to remember when you open the door, water, a name for your name to return to. Untitled with invisible ink. I know a wood where each leaf is the distance between two dark towns, where each branch contains what is granted to kingdoms, and I know the wind that carries all of that away. I know a tree in that wood and a stone in that wood, because we have sat for long hours, and together we have the energy of a shaken man, the energy I wouldn't have, seated just by myself. I know a house at the edge of that wood, a small house with a woman whose heart is saddened in slow motion, broken in places the blood doesn't know. I've heard her weeping through the crickets and the vetch, because they carry what is hidden out into the world. I've heard the sound of silk in her throat when she struggles for words, and the sound of firelight spreading across water when she's sleeping. I've seen her up close, and I've seen her far away, and I've seen her hands adjust that distance with emotion. She wrote this small poem in her small house, but she doesn't know. She wrote it with whatever is akin to breathing, sighs and breath against the panes, the fog that rolls out of that original ocean fathoms down in the body. I know those waters, the covering waves, the fish that carry the language through. We come from there with our words and our deeds, all the fin trailings of what is left unspoken. The light down there is like a small house lit by a candle, just enough brightness to read by, to write by with invisible ink, enough glow to allow for the soul to go further than the fingertips, to bend over the answers and hesitate, to pick up the pen which isn't there. A hummingbird's heart beats 1,260 times a minute, for Julia. This man will sit in his chair till sunrise. It's been a long day, and now the conversations of the day separate the blades of grass to lie down. Now the pauses between words possess everything, the diligence of emptiness knowing no end that he can see, ecstasy of blank spaces between the stones, and all thoughts out of the stones, allowed to wander till morning. There's a sadness about him that he can't interpret, like streamlets carrying strokes of blood back to a source it doesn't understand. Like all the little Sibyls under the floorboards that can't speak a word, and the books on the shelves that can't read themselves. In his room, only the Hummingbird understands, pressed between the pages of the family Bible in the 1850s, like a rose that understood flight, pushed flatly, woefully against all the words of God. A flower where the darkness gathers in the shape of a bird, where death gathers 1,260 times a minute. That's enough sorrow for even a man to understand, to find his place, the weight of his unhappiness, that feather falling inside himself, where there are no wings, no flying into light, not a flutter, no answers coming from motion. All our wonder unavenged. 1. Particles of evening warm themselves in the afternoon sun. Pieces of solitude gather slowly, one under each ginkgo leaf. I sit on a rock of saddle-backed granite. I sit in a world of abundance. A handful of bees goes down to the river. 2 handfuls return. You deadhead, the dog rose, and 2 stray curs appear. You deadhead a memory, and 2 more appear, longer and deeper and more alive than the last. I remember my mother seated at the kitchen window, her cat's eye glasses staring out into the night, trying to find divinity in divinity's reasons. My mother believed God moved the sparrows around day after day. As a teenager, I believed the sparrows moved God around, all the inexhaustible crutches he leaned upon, all the underweights of silence to find his way. Now the only God I believe in are the sparrows themselves, unaltered by my belief. Their wings contain hollow bones where a pantheon could pass through, and they do. Hundreds pass through at every moment. This is how they fly, by allowing passage to Earth's beliefs, the little deities of the big thunder and the rain that falls. 2. At my feet black ants run about, looking for a great storehouse, a little picnic, a little head-hunting in the grass. They drink the dew, and as far as I know, curse nothing. I would like to curse nothing, to move about practicing quietism, perhaps find the great storehouse, do some head-hunting, stick to a regime, the discipline of a feather falling from a sparrow's back. I would like to be called out and fall to the furthest limits of the finite, to a resting place among the relativity of all attributes, which would be home surely, where I began, where I no longer dwell, feeling time and space upon me now, a little dust in my eyes. 3. A few clouds move in, riding the intersections of ancient thought across the sky. Old ideas that floated upward, Confucian dialogues, Sumerian rumors, prayers to Pallas Athena, Persian satires, druidical ethics, not gone, not absorbed, not forgotten, just there, influencing us still, carrying our lighter burdens in the clouds. From where I sit, clouds cast shadows on the flower beds, perennials along the fence that bloom like glossy photographs of themselves. Bright flowers stripped from shining pages, from catalogues that never mention the plant that doesn't exist, the imagined yarrow that the mind owns, that has neither root nor stalk, leaf nor flower. And all my thoughts are a divination with yarrow sticks and a mere filament of flame, a single mouse hair burning deep in a canyon, lighting up less than an inch of dead embers, the big fire, full consciousness having moved on immediately, traveling constantly, never resting while in nature, while under heaven's luminous regard. 4. I've been seated here for 3 hours, I think, difficult to be sure, without a watch or a column of diminishing sand, or a dog that scratches her head at 10-minute intervals. Time is a controversial work about which no one agrees. Time's a bugger, my grandmother said, and she would know. Time's a bugger, and finitude a fluid state without a source. Anyway, time is passing for me in my piece of granite. No point thinking about it, separating it out. Cling to unity, the Taoists said over and over, till the nettles repeated it generation to generation, till you hear it on the breeze sweeping across fields and ditches. I'd rather contemplate nettles, follow their leaves back to Culpepper's herbs, to the tonics of Hildegard of Bingen. I'd rather make nettle tea and drink to Lao Tzu. But a shadow glides by, and I have to look up. A bald eagle flies over, making his way down to the river to fish the afternoon away. Calendrical wing beats, time's wordless doctrine, upheld and maintained, the wounds of salmon like minutes cradled in the hour's arms. 5. Late afternoon and the western sun door still ajar. Some hours to go before it closes. Shadow hours for the food gatherers to return to their mounds, for chickadees to follow their old ways, fables without end. Cosmologies of shadows gather up the light from under hostas and azaleas, many stories to be joined into one before night comes. Only one story after the sun slips over the horizon, the one in the manifold. My face is the face of the disk. This is the deceased speaking from the Egyptian Book of the Dead. From the other side of darkness, the bright side and its holy office trying to give us a hint, an initiation into eternity, so we might find the eternal and perceptual experience, so we might find our way in the world, and the oncoming twilight is the perfect time to find our way. So the Celts believed, that sacred in-between time, between worlds, betwixt night and day, when all crossings are possible, freeing us from duality, Dharma path, the Buddhists called it, pollen path of beauty, to quote the wisdom of the Navajo, and the bees would agree, returning once more from the banks of the river. 6. I sit on my rock watching dragonflies hover by, with their wings sheathed in calligraphy, listen to feral cats on the move, spreading their tantric cries, while shadows grow taller and taller like adolescent boys. And dogs bark, and I almost understand their Indo-European tongues, their slang for sex, for death, their reasons for biting their masters, for venerating the chase through the thickets, the unlimited awe, their wonder unavenged, all our wonder unavenged, all of it left hanging in the fetish shine of the moment, a longing, a bit of animal shine along our skin. They are nations, the Quran says of the animals, and I believe it. A kinship of being and knowing as deep as ours, as ancient as breath on the lips, and any meditation on this deepens our own being, humbles us before the cricket's leg and the badger's eye, and we should be humbled, fall to our knees. Then comes stillness and listening, comes with kneeling, and listening is the language of the soil, Latin of the hawkweed, so I sit quietly without moving, while buried all around me, seeds lie on their sides, longing upwards to visible air, while dusk is falling, honeymooning the shadows, darkening the medicine, the metaphysics of the grass, while microbes repeat their silent mantras to themselves, soundless and drifting, all woebegone and woken, all Buddhas of immeasurable light. 7. Time to go indoors. Drink from the glass, eat from the plate, move the pages of a book around, or watch the news sway in its cradle of light. A few stars are up, and Venus in her silks at the horizon, fresh from the underworld, a tracery of myths hammered onto her body, passing our lives night after night, where we all sit at a dark gate waiting for it to open, dreaming of lifting the latch of a morning star and stepping through to redemption. Redemption is a dark game, someone once said, and muffled, I would add, like the whisperer inside the fox, calling to the whisperer inside the varying hare, a dark and distant game, too distant for me as I walk to the house. The moon is rising, cabbaging light from the weeds, full moon, full sides short of breath from the long climb. I walk and I could sleep in it, in the footsteps, in the motion given, jewel give of the fireweed, scent give of the lilies trying to keep all of summer down. I walk and birds are settling in for the evening among the pine boughs, their small calls from tree to tree, like the voice of Proteus across his many forms. Campfire. When I make a campfire, the forest learns of my poverty, my penury here on earth. The match flares, and it's like going home after trying to find your place in the world and failing miserably. I sit waiting for night, It nears through the verge, down on all fours and familiar with no one but God. It comes slowly through the trees, like a black dog turning its head from side to side, like a seeing-eye dog without its owner, still showing blindness away through the world. Leaning on silk. 1. An October morning after another sleepless night, I lift the window to let in the little strengths of the day. All night the house felt like it was under water, red gills beneath each shingle opening and closing to receive the air. Now the view from the window is waterless, dry grass and bright sky with a few crows hitched to maples. The sun is out of plain sight, over there near the edges of salvation, bringing the bees to life, autumn coming down after dark to lie a while upon the earth. No freeze yet to switch off hearts and turn up the elegies, no frost yet to escort the mold beneath the ferns, just quietude now and eyelids of soil lowered over granite and roads collecting dead leaves, the little sweep along the breeze, redness of leaves like coal fires starting to catch, the carboniferous blush that keeps saying goodbye. 2. Almost 8 a.m. and cars are scurrying beneath the leaves, reminding me of Egyptian scarabs, door beetles coppery gold, and dog blue and green as two landscapes superimposed one upon the other, the way day is made. I drink coffee while looking out the window, warmth of a star standing with me in the kitchen, the house breathing softly against my ear, the dead fly on the counter resembling another house far away, a dark house that I almost remember, where I'm certain some secret still lies, its bones set to low music like water over stones, its skin petaled with lost sleep, amen to secrets, to all these mornings hidden beneath sunlight, where the heavens can never find us, our small secrets holding us to the earth, rituals and fetishes mothering us on through storm and silence, our mantra in the bedroom just before we wake, later the coffee's prayer steaming up, gliding by indistinguishable from our minds pushed high into the ether, the edges of vacancy lingering there, thought and concept uncombed, vapor into vapor, trailing away. 3. Last night I watched the stars and once stars, infinity on the quiet, sliding over the trees, flames entrusted to expectancy, to the next moment, the next secret, all those bottomless fires flashed across space, hiding countless worlds with light, all those endless solitudes sealed in shine, ungettable in the glare, ecstasy sunstruck into the hush of things, slow burn of seance into seance, solar heat stung into rock and flesh, chemical ghosts curled clockwise, asleep in the tan. I stood for an hour or so watching the welkin nose west, reclusive luster of the infinite pushing itself along, on one edgeless shadow, no overseer plying embraces, bosoming in the welts of light, not a machine either, but the heat of an absent God, his slow turn away from the margins. I stood feeling that absence, because we are born to it, because the night sky is part of our nervous system, stellar sends luminous, softly bright along neural pathways, a celestial glow seeping into blood, the vault of heaven in every cell like breath blown clear of the body, tumble of flames in each gesture we make, everywhere a radiancy lit by our movements, our frowns, our small walks across the earth. 4. I'm watching each direction add up the sunlight, making a day of it. Another Monday among the sticks and milkweed, bees' blood in the air, cats walking off stage, bare places calling in their children, morning grunges on beneath varying skies. In any other life I would still be standing here witnessing the high camouflage of blue air, hearing at every moment the low thrum of the ego, that eerie enchantment with naming the self. In another life I would still wait with the gravel for the frost to come silvering in. The stars would still hold their Newtonian dissolve, their slow lapse behind time. Slouching and half asleep at the window, I lean on a memory of stars which is like leaning on silk, the folds of it collapsing into self-regard, that secretive pride in loving what can't be owned. But that pride fades. It always does. Sinks like the thin clasp of serenity fastened onto water, our egos writ on water, so pitiful in morning's glitter. 5. A few dark clouds are coming in from the northwest. Later the writings of rain on all the roads out of the city. Doctrines on quietism and impermanence. Precepts that influence one person out of a million. That person indistinguishable from the water falling, from the trees holding their breath against their sides. A codling moth is fluttering against the window pane. Some are still alive in October. A few of those drifting off each night with the wrong angel. A few of us too, sliding into shadows, becoming a bit of dust on the agony tree or a gaze fallen or the gloam bladed thin among the idols of grass. We vanish the way the bright edges of water vanish, silently like the heart cipher, the way the body makes its chemistry without names. The moth has settled against the glass, stilled deeper into the moment by the great holding of itself. Thin strip of wings shivered into place. This is where the night will gather. Stars over cities, moon rising, lovers afoot in whispers gravity. When I look closely, I can see it has a pattern of interlacing fingers along its body. It holds me beneath them when I'm sleeping. I'm exhausted and leaning on the kitchen counter. The moth has settled against the glass. Its mind is a pair of wings trembling. Its mind is like that sensation of falling, just a moment before sleep.